Perfect. Okay, Scott is just logging on. We still have a lot of instructors logging on. So a few things. Even though today is a really intensive knife class, an hour on working with a blade, it really translates to all the other weapons. And in fact, it translates to non-bladed weapons, non-traditional weapons. You know, when you do kobudo, things like this. So a lot of those things will apply across the board to everything we do. It's all really talking about combatives, you know, so whether you use your hand, you strike, knees, grapple, headbutts, whatever it is, you submit somebody on the ground, you do submission wrestling, you use a blade, you learn how to fire arms, learning firearms, things like this. In traditional times, bow and arrow, archery from horseback, using a musket, all those things were relevant in its time and content. And today, a lot of times we kind of practice some of those techniques more for historical reasons rather than practical reasons. So I want to talk about what is practical, what is applicable, what is done more for as a hobby, and you know, kind of preserving the traditional things. So just we always start talking about blades, about a famous quote from Yamamoto Musashi, which is life or death is a matter of ichibu. And ichibu, we say 1 inch, but it's actually a little square of silver. So when samurai used to get paid, they used to get a little tiny square of silver. That was ichibu, a little square. Okay, so it's this big. So somebody draws a blade, your blade misses, their blade hits you in the eye, you go like this, they stab you to kill you. So you have to be very, very precise. So that's one. Let's start by just looking at different blades. In kobudo, you're familiar with the sai, tonfa, those shapes, and we've spent so much time talking about how they came to be. But if you look at the world, my favorite part of the world for blades is the Indo-Malaysian archipelago that stretches from Thailand, goes all the way through Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, all the way Brunei, and it eventually ends up in East Timor, which is very close to Australia. And there's thousands of islands, hundreds of languages, and hundreds of different blades. So every culture will have its own blade, and they're based on practical reasons, but they're also based on historical and religious reasons as well. Just want to talk about a couple of different blades. Every blade serves a purpose. So I have probably over 200 blades from all over the world, practical blades, actual blades. So this particular blade is called a badik. Okay, that badik is kind of a knife, but some people refer to it as a pistol grip knife. Okay, so a badik is designed for a specific purpose. When you stab, you rotate. So the handle gives you a greater range of rotations, and we'll talk about different cutting, tearing, cleaving, things like that. So badik is a multi-purpose weapon used in Indonesia, but there's a particular pistol grip. So most people don't think of a knife having a pistol grip because it's done for turning. If you know, kind of, if you want to use a stubborn screw, you need to have a larger, handle to turn, right? Turn it. So the same thing. This will give you better stabbing. So this is designed for basically stabbing, particularly to the body. This knife is very popular, even in John Wick 3. He was attacked by 2 famous Indonesian martial art movie stars, and they were excellent. And they use this weapon, which is called karambit, or this kambit or karambit. Okay, and this is an actual weapon. It's sharp on both ends, and it's designed to flick and cut and tear and things like that. So it's a blade like this. And this was born of a different blade. This weapon is called Kikui, and it's a Malaysian, Indonesian weapon, and this is designed to gut somebody, basically. This is a tearing and ripping weapon. We'll talk about the difference. And if you look at the weapon, this is very Arabic shaped. If you know anything about Yemen or other countries, there's a weapon called jimbia, and it's kind of sign of manhood when you're 11 or 12, 13 years old, and you're a man, you're giving a jimbia. So if you ever see any kind of Arabic countries, the boy will have a rite of passage, almost like a bar mitzvah, where he gets the jimbia, and you'll see different cultures that will have this particular knife. And this is the Malaysian version of the jimbia. I didn't want to bring 8,000 different exotic weapons, but some of them are heavy impact weapons. So this is still a blade weapon. Some people consider a knife. This is called a push Katara, and this is very popular in Indian subcontinent. And it's designed to reinforce your hand. And then sometimes it's used with a small shield, a buckler, and it's designed to stab over the shield, under the shield, and it's very strong reinforced. The reason we have this kind of arm protection here is because it reinforces your grip. Because this weapon was used from 12th, 13th century. So somebody chainmailed, a superficial cut would hit and bang. By having this kind of reinforcement, it would puncture the chainmail. So basically, you push somebody against the wall with a helmet, you come and you keep stabbing until you tear a chainmail or turn to the side and start stabbing an exposed area. So this is a Katara. Okay, so I'm not going to go through 200 different blades, but those are the basic blades. European blades, this is the most common blade that people carry, and this is just a single folder. Okay, and a folder is usually single-edge weapon, usually the length of your palm. Very effective. We'll talk about that. It's what I classify a defensive weapon. And this is a same version. This is a very old weapon. This comes from Spain. This was made by a very famous sword weapon maker in Toledo. And this is called a navaja. A navaja is a original kind of stiletto, okay, where you think stiletto. And this was favored by people called gitanos. Gitanos are gypsies of France, Spain, Italy. You know, they would travel. This was kind of their weapon for protection. And also, if they did crimes, they carried this weapon. And its locks, very unusually, have to kind of push it and locks in. And people talk about in Spain, they talk about the clicks, the 3 clicks of death. If you're walking late at night and you hear this, you know you're in serious trouble, okay? So this is a navaja. We'll talk about how to use that weapon as well. And the most common weapons that we're familiar with, this is a 200-year-old knife, probably 200 years old knife. And this is already a shape of what was to become, it would conceal a military knife, okay? So this kind of shape. And this knife became in World War I and then World War II. This is a copy of a knife called Sykes Fairbanks. The Sykes and Fairbanks were 2 expert hand-to-hand combat instructors in the US Army, and they devised the whole fighting system based on this knife. And this is also the symbol of, if you know, SAS, Strategic Air Services in England, one of the strongest, you know, clandestine units, special ops units. This is their symbol. And this is also a lot of the American World War II special ops services will have this on their crests and badges as a symbol of stealth and death. Okay, so this is a very practical weapon. Okay, so I want to talk about different kind of strikes. So first of all, not all strikes are the same. Okay? There's defensive and offensive strikes. The defensive strike is designed to make the person back up. Offensive strike designed to injure the person permanently. So if you look at a basic slash, basic slashing movement, whatever you're doing with a knife, there's really no intent, no purpose to it. It's just moving the knife back and forth. But more importantly, stabbing weapons, same thing. If you're stabbing, so a lot of times it's a violent situation. You really don't know what happens. You're stabbing whatever you hit, come what may. Cleaving means actually you're cutting to the bone. It's a different impact. So the slash would be this. The cleave would be you touch the weapon and actually draw it in. So you would actually sometimes using it from as a power assist, be much stronger this way. Ripping is a lot of the blades, sometimes it's serrated. So when you put it in, you actually tear the skin with a serrated edge or from the tip. The blunt portion of it is used for, if somebody grabs my wrist, I'll use this to release so I can stab afterwards. Projectile is if you have multiple weapons, you throw it on away. And you know, everybody thinks of when you throw a knife, it's like a ninja movie. The guy falls down. A projectile of a weapon is designed to cover ground. Okay? So if I have 2 knives here, and my opponent is 10 feet away, I throw the first one. When I throw the first one, it allows me to cover the ground quickly. When they go like this, I'll be able to be on them in one motion. So I have two knives. I throw one at their face, and in the same motion, I slash through. I will definitely make sure I have a cut. Okay. If you ever saw a katana or even some tantos or wakizashis, sometimes an auxiliary knife on top. A lot of people think that was kind of a utensil knife using for food and things like that. This was a weapon. It's a very sturdy piece of metal designed for in-close fighting and again throwing. So a lot of times in sword fighting, you throw the auxiliary knife and then draw your sword afterwards. So those are the major kind of means of cutting. So let's start just working on basic templates. I'll do a template in the air, then I'll demonstrate Shigariki. We have 8 different templates. I'm not going to go through all of them. Number 1, everybody's very familiar with. So if I lift my weapon up here, it is high line, low line, stab, stab, stab to the left, stab to the right. Okay. So if we're going this way, we step right, we step left. But right now, I'm just going to stay stationary. So high line, low line, stab one, stab two, step from the outside, step from the outside. Okay? And a lot of times you're moving to the side, or 7 or 8, somebody grabs my wrist, I turn the wrist over, I stab them, they grab me here, I loop it, and I stab there. Okay? So first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, insert, insert, step a little bit left, step a little bit right, and release, and back. Okay? So when you're stabbing A, stabbing B, if you're stabbing to the body, this is probably better because the opponent turns, it punctures the ribs better. So even slow motion, you know, this versus this will go much more deeper in. So slowly from here, let's try at least template one. Nice, yeah, good. Keep it going, guys. I'm going to ask my colleague to come in. I had my shot, my vaccine shot. He's going to wear a mask just in case. So from here, perfect sense. Okay. So we just stand, we just do basic extension. He just relaxes. I go 1. He goes 2. We start trading. Trading. Okay. Just try that, guys. Back and forth. Keep it going. Beautiful. Focus, 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 follow through. Amazing job, everybody. Okay, perfect. Template 2, I reverse my hand. So I'll do it in the air first. So no stepping, just from here. Right, left, stab, 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 and power assist stab. So slowly from here. Outside loop, turn, inside loop. Body or maybe forearm. Body 1, body 2, 3, ice 4. Okay, so we're using earth grip or ice pick grip. So nice and slow. So from here, loop 1, 2, wrist maybe, stomach, outside, power assist, and back. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, nice. 4, nice. Last one, 5. That is excellent, everybody. Fantastic, fantastic cutting. So now number 3 is he'll be backwards to me, just to learn the positioning. So since he's backwards toward me, now I have 2 options. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so nice and slow. So stab, 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 or slash, slash, stab, stab. I'm going to kneel, whirl, in, outside. Okay? And then from here we stand up, and I do the last cut. So super slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Next. Try a few times. Okay, fantastic. Now, truth about angles. So I'm going to ask my colleague to come in. Perfect. And we're going to go to template 1. So if you just take a look, template 1, he goes outside, inside. Okay. 2, 3, 4. No, just high and low. 1, 2, 3, 4. Body, neck, outside, inside. Perfect. Okay. So the problem is he's going to hit me in the neck. Okay. So nothing's going to be exactly the same. Okay. So the minute he goes to hit me, Whatever, maybe he'll still hit me. If he parries my other hand and stabs me, maybe slash with the other side, maybe I'll parry. You know, so those are just suggestion of placement. Okay, and we say back fist face, punch body, rich hand face. Well, it's, you know, so there's a difference between static person. He cuts my throat. He stabs me in the throat. Let's say, okay, whatever. Cuts my throat. He stabs. It's, you know, whatever it is. It's always very organic. So in most fights, people get cuts on the arms, we call defensive cuts. So when he slashes my neck, I do this, and he pulls his hand back. If he goes this side, he pulls. So that's why most of the cuts on the outside. So we always try to keep our hands outside because most of your veins are on the inside, especially the femoral veins. You can bleed out in 30 to 40 seconds out of your veins. So you want to kind of fight with your hands out. So when he cuts, I never want to turn my hand this way. But if he cuts, I always kind of want to get more bone into it rather than vein into it. Thank you much. That's perfect. Okay. So from here, next thing is just take your knife and just move around a little bit and just kind of shadow box. The way we do this, do the same thing with the knife. Just move around a little bit. You guys look absolutely fantastic. Okay, now let's talk about the knife on the other. So from here, maybe I push and I stab. Maybe I headbutt and I stab. Maybe I knee and stab. Maybe I stab and grab and I knee. Maybe I have to throw a lead kick. Maybe I have to do a strip. So move around and think of your hands. If I'm here, maybe from here to elbow and then cut. You know, holding my wrist, elbow, cut. Move around a little bit. So try to use your entire body. Shadow box. Even though the knife is a principal weapon, let's use head, elbow, forearms, fingertips, feet, knees. Beautiful, and time, please. So now, if I'm going back, he has a knife, and I'm empty-handed. He strikes me 1, he strikes 2, strike 3, he strikes 4, he strikes 5, etc. Okay, so we call this a feeding system. So if you most recently John Wick 1, 2, 3, you know, that's how you kind of do stage combat. There was a famous movie called The Hunted, which is a lot more realistic. But it's, again, it's all sticks. So we practice, we go like this. So I go like this and repeatedly, then you punch me with the other hand. I grab your hand like this. And I go here, whatever. Okay, so it's one more time. So here, he punches here, over here. I hit him like that. And this time from here, you're gonna let the knife fly. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, drop the knife. Okay, perfect. So is that real training or is that movie fighting? That's a predestined yakusoku prearranged routine. So if I do this over, I'm not going to do it again, but if I keep doing this over and over again, I start believing my own hype. You know, so I do it once, I do it 10 times, I do it 1 month, I do it 1 year, I do 5 years. I'm incredible. I'm walking down the street, this guy runs up and stabs me 3 times in the kidney, and I die. What happened to my movie scripted fight? I could just get stabbed in the thing because I forgot the most important thing about martial art, which is busai, martial intuition. Okay, so when he approaches me with a knife, the real thing is let's go through the play fight. Is maintaining a distance, go and throw a punch. So okay, kick me. Oh, I wasn't sure he was going to do that. You know, so I'm maintaining open mind. I'm not really predestined. I have a drill, but I can adjust a drill like that. Second thing is he runs up, he stabs me. What kind of martial artist I am? If I see him here, you know, whatever, I should be aware that somebody's approaching toward me before I can start getting stabbed. You know, so it's different if sometimes, pardon my French, but shit happens. You know, but your mental awareness is what should prevent you from dying from a knife fight, not the actual fighting. Okay. So if you're fighting, you'll get injured. Very famous saying in Silat, Silat teacher says this all the time. In a real knife fight, the loser goes to the morgue, the winner goes to the hospital. There's no such thing as disarms and nothing happens. My Silat teacher, he would open and he would show you these welts and cuts and things like that. That's somebody, and you can say, wow, how good are you if you have all these cuts? And somebody actually said, one of the Western students that was in Singapore said to him, how good can you be when you have all these cuts? He said, I'm alive, idiot. You want to know how good I am? I'm still alive, and maybe the other guy isn't. I wasn't sure what he was implying, but the whole thing is, we're in a culture of YouTube. We're in a culture. Shanuki's here with me, so he's going to feed me one. So okay, everybody, let's do this. He's going to go okay here and okay like this, and so everybody, then he changes the angle and hits me right in the face. So if you can do things while you're talking to the camera, you're not doing real martial arts. There's no element of danger. There's no element of injury. Okay, so please remember that. Okay, so feeding systems, both blade to blade. So we stand like this, and let's do 6. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. That's okay. That's a good practice. Later on, when it's sporadic, I can rely on those right angles. Okay, then we do the same thing with knife to knife. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it's the same thing. So we go from empty hand to knife. Okay, thanks, Sean. Very good. So using 2 knives, a lot of people will enjoy using 2 knives. Whatever it is, it's okay. It's a good distraction. You have to be a very good fighter to be able to use 2 knives in tandem. You have to have good coordination. You can do the same thing just with an empty hand. Slap the person, cut, hit the wrist, hit the wrist, cut. Using the punya, almost stab. You can do the same thing with 1 knife that you can do with 2. Okay, perfect. Next thing, let's talk about reality and kind of falsehood. Chuck, can you grab me for a second? So he's gonna, okay, so first of all, this is called a feeding system. He shows me the angle and perfect, change stop. I react to the angle. Show me. Okay, I react to the angle. So if he keeps the knife close and then he changes angles, okay, it's not quite as good for me. Okay, right? So I move back a little bit. When he attacks, the distance gives me a chance to respond. So if he can touch me with a knife, I will lose every single time. If he has to take a step, I just double my chance of responding to the knife. Okay. So remember, practice distance. We're here. He hits 1, 2. Okay. So this is practice distance. Real fighting here. Okay. Perfect. And then once we make contact, let's say we make contact and I pass, is the opposite. I want to seize the weapon. Okay. So from here, I'm in control. You can just bend his arm, pass the knife to the other hand, stab me with the other hand. So it's really important to reinforce the hand. So let's talk about how we reinforce the hand. So if we do double loop on the right hand, okay. Right now Ricky is stronger than I am. So from here, so I can punch him, but he can punch me too. Okay. So from here we have an over grab, and I have an over grab and under grab. Okay. And the third is power assisting with my knee, with my body, shoulder, whatever it is. So one of the most important things, if you're practicing with someone with a really sharp blade, if we have a double cut. Okay. So right now he's stronger, probably stronger than I am, or he can other weapons. So if I go over, this is an over, so this thing can be better sensitive. If I take him to the wall, I'm going to go very hard. Then it's much easier for me to control. So this would be, so if you can just do this exercise for me, just 1, 2, hold. Okay. So from here, so we go 1, 2, over. Okay. So it looks like this: 1, 2, no stepping, over, figure 4. With fight, movement here, parry, pass, catch, trap. 1. With a push. Try 3 times. right, catch, over, figure four, walking back, stab. And time. So let's try now under. It's the same, exactly the same drill. So it's the same drill. Same drill. One over from here. The head. So if in this position, so the power is not going to come from my wrist. Even if you got his wrist here, it's going to come from me. Slowly from your face off. Grabs my wrist, let's say. Okay. It's twisting. So basic karate technique, hip rotation. Same thing. So double touch. Move it over. This is under. It could be here. It could be here. We're moving around. He grabs my wrist. He doesn't let me go. My elbow here. Then if I walk into the wall, I'm going to put her. This. Much better. And then you go. Can't be handled. Thank you, Sensei. Okay, so do this. Or do this. 1, 2. Over. Under. Couple times on your own. Excellent, very nice. So power assist. So first power assist is the tearing, rip, and cleaving. If he grabs me, so singular, reinforcing strike. So with a power assist cut, grabbing, pushing strike one way. So it's a two-way thing. Then we have what's called a body reinforcement. So if he does a whip hand grab and he grabs a knife here, he's stronger than I am. Okay? So I try to run him. That's a body power assist. One, could be a string. It could be a thigh. It could be a stomach. It could be a head to the body. It could be upward. Foot sweep. Slowly. I'm going to hurt my partner here. So I'm sweeping him and he falls on top of the blade. Okay. Any kind of, if you grab a knife from the back, this way, just moving backwards, hooking, stabbing, and you can move like this. And the most important power assist is the wall. So if you go here, okay, so it's like this position. So move. Perfect. I have the right position. So, defensive weapons. If you ever looked at European fencing, Spanish school, Italian school, French school, there's a lot of positions like this. If you think of a bullfighter, toro, yeah. So in Spanish fencing, this is called spana, and this is a cape, okay? So from here, daga and cape. So we use the cape both for distraction. And now people in Silat, Filipino martial art, they use a sarong, which is a thing that you wear around your body, and is designed to blind the person momentarily to strike, but also for fighting, just he's got a knife. Okay, and we're in this position like this. He has no idea what's happening, but if I can flip his eyesight, I'll be able to stab him. Some people like to wrap the weapon, which is okay because if it's a short weapon, if he does hit, I have some protection. But if he's a good fighter, he'll cleave it. He'll actually go through it. Yeah. So if he stabs, it's better to use this more as a blinder. So this gives me a better blinding than rather a shielding. Okay, perfect. So just if you want to do non-lethal strike, if he hits, you can use the knife backwards. He stabs, so I use the back of the knife. So let's see from here. I don't want to hurt him. So from here, the knife drops. And I have a choice: either attack him or back down. Yeah. So from here, so forward. If he grabs my wrist, I have a choice to stand back with a pommel or puño. So everything's a weapon. You know, every part of your body is a weapon. So make sure everything is really used defensively. Rushing, if he's a training knife, and he just runs toward me. Very, very difficult to deal with attacks. So the most important thing is to rush. So just try to move offline. The problem is when you move to the inside, if he's a skilled fighter, if he's just attacking with his hand, he grabs and I will probably die. So whatever it is here, at least move to the outside. So if you don't know where the person's striking, face level, chest level, stick to the stomach. It's always better. Yeah, to the side. Okay. So if you see somebody running at you, try to move to the side and seize and go into your close and work. Is that enough violence for now? Okay. Because I'm looking at everybody who's like, that's not exactly the classmate you came for. Well, that's the realities of knife fighting. Okay, so just a couple things. You will get cut. I'm talking about real fighting, you will get cut, but you will survive. Okay, that's the most important thing. So before we switch our program, any questions, anything? Scott, anything that you want to ask? Or Manzo,
I have a question.
Sure, who's this?
Marley. A question about what the most common attacks would be just in a street knife fight, because I don't think people are
quick
going
stabs to the back. You know, most of the time, guys. Again, I'm using a sharp blade here, so I'll go nice and slow. This is a very common movement. Hit turn, maybe it's just hit turn means I spin, and then I will do the next. So I'll use the back of the sharp knife, but it's still here. I'll cut him, okay. Or if he just extends his hand forward, moving to the outside, stabbing to the hip. So this is probably the most common attack there is. When I go to the face, you know, it's easier to avoid. Something insignificant, something small, it's very difficult. You know, people get killed with a sharpened toothbrush, right? And some people survive a machete attack, right? Because they can see it coming a long distance. And there's a greater arc of motion. They can defend much better. Okay, excellent question, Marty. Anything else before we move on?
Handshake.
Yes, please.
I noticed that a lot of the movements, the self-defense movements, seem to be directly linked to a lot of the kata that we have. Absolutely. Right? Would you encourage kind of like teaching knife in relationship to kata as opposed to just a separate thing?
I personally don't see a difference between striking, grappling, or knife work. I don't see any difference. You know, in the last 20, 30 years, because Gracie Jiu is very popular, the U.S. Marine system, United States Marine Corps, they developed their own fighting system, which is 90% Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, basically, everything about takedowns. The problem is that if you're a big fan of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and if you practice, and you're a very good grappler, there's a saying, if you have a hammer, everything in the world looks to you like a nail, right? So the thing is, if you're a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, especially a black belt, you're excellent at it, but that's the only way you can function. It's difficult to deal with multiple opponents. It's difficult to grapple with somebody with a knife. When I go for a single leg takedown, they might stab me in the neck, you know? So it's really very difficult. So the US Marines, last 10, 15 years, they started introducing having knives on the body. They grapple, and at some point somebody accesses the knife and you still have to do your John Wick, arm breaks from the, you know, helicopter pickup arm breaks with a knife, you know, which is okay. But again, you know, it goes into this mode of, I don't want to say make-believe, but kind of stage fighting, right? So, you know, one of the things I don't want to mention a term here, but the more you practice fake fighting, the more of a dick you become. That means you start believing your own bullshit, you know? So, you know, I can do this, you know, I can do this, especially Sean Ricky, or if I work with Yoshi Vince or Mark Manalo, or, you know, they know, they're like perfect, what you call uke. Uke means to break fall, to fall, predestined faller. So there's already a defined relationship. He strikes me with a knife, I will control it, I will take him down. Okay? That's his role. So how can he win? You know, he gets paid, he signed an actor's agreement to lose the fight right before it even started, right? So what, he's not going to collect his check at the end of the performance? Of course he will, you know? So we learn by mistakes, you know? So I have lots of little cuts on my hands, things like that. You know, when I clean knives, I cut myself. So you can cut yourself by, when you're cleaning your blade, can you imagine somebody's trying to really injure you? You know, so I will post a lot of different things online for you guys on our groups. And the first one is, I'll post this thing, okay? Everything I'll post online for you guys, but it says Northern Karate Defensive Edge Combat, where to slash, stab, and then run. And it talks about areas like eyes, throat, neck. It doesn't have specific things. People say, I go for the external jugular and then I go for the internal, you know, whatever. Again, I'm standing like this, you can hit whatever you want, but from here is slash of the neck, you know, at least you'll hit something, you know. If you're going to slash at the inside of the leg, you know, whether you're hitting the major femoral or the superficial femoral, which is a smaller, you can bleed out in 30 to 40 seconds. You know, you don't have to be like precise or have a MRI of the person before you attack them. It's what we call a Hail Mary shot. You go as close as you can and you move forward, right? And you swing for the fences if you choose to do so, right? So that's what you know, my first template you should be teaching all your students is defensive template, which is stab, slash, and run, okay? And that's it, right? So hitting on the outside of the wrist, when you see blood, people, a lot of times they will withdraw the violent action when they see blood, right? You can stab them in the leg. They're not realized, you know, they see the hand, they go, oh my God, they cut my hand. If you don't wrap your hand, you can go like this, you can be okay for hours and hours and hours. You get stabbed in the leg, major stab, if you don't really tighten, you know, and people in the movies, they put this tourniquet around. You have to do it so strong that you always pass out yourself from the pressure, right? In order to stop the bleeding, right? If there's pain from the tourniquet, that means you're stopping the blood. If there's no pain, you're not stopping anything. And so on the wrist, the person backs down immediately. On the leg, they keep coming, except 30, 40 seconds, they might be dead, okay? The other thing is we talk about punching the neck. It's really important, and grabbing the vagus nerve. You know, when you do MP, you know, grabs, all the different grabs we do, you know, basic grabbing to the throat. It's so important because the vagus nerve controls your sensory system, okay? So by grabbing somebody here, you're depleting them of two things. You're lowering their blood pressure tremendously, and the heartbeat slow down tremendously. So that's how people faint, you know? If you go to somebody here, they don't die, they faint. And it's much better to make somebody faint than stab them with a knife and kill them, okay? So you have to remember that there is a lot of, what I want to say is the three stages of combat is role play or stage play, which is kind of what most people do in the dojo. And there's no really emotional, you know, baggage that comes with it, except you start believing your own crap, okay? The intermediate level is where you can injure the other person. You know, you're developing real skills. And the last one is the very violent attack, which I call all in, which is very serious. Either you get damaged severely or you damage the other person severely, you know? So, I mean, that's really last resort. All in means that you have no choice, you have to fight. So people talk about fight or flight. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. A lot of times you don't have the choice. It's not like, you know, it just happens, stuff happens. But you have to kind of decide how far in, you know. There's a famous teacher, Ed Parker, who passed away some time ago. He always used to say, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So his thought was that if you fight violently and you go to a court of law and you explain the situation stuff, you'll be okay. If you don't, you're gonna probably be injured severely or pass away. So those are the things. So just remember, in terms of your prison or martial art training, when you're training, a lot of times you're reenacting movements and ideas, you're enforcing techniques, and a lot of times, like I said, those techniques are more for cultural reasons or you know, traditional reasons, historical reasons, all those points, much more so than the combat, you know. The very last thing I will leave you with is if you have an instructor who talks in really violent terms, you know, I stabbed him here and I ripped his eyes out and I did this, and they've never been in a fight probably, you know, because it's anybody who served in military service, the voice changes. Anyone who's experienced war, my father was in a war from 1941 to 1945. And I would say to my father, wow, you must have seen some really terrible things between 1941 and 1945. Can you tell me about it? He says, oh yeah, it looks like it's gonna rain. Yeah, you better wear a hat. And he would leave. Most people who really experience violent situations don't even want to talk about it. You know, they have a completely different perspective on what it is. And martial art people have this fantastical idea what martial arts are. And sometimes, you know, you're feeding your students rubber guns and rubber knives, and you're telling them it's a true weapon that will be able to defend themselves, and it's not. You know, the greatest things you can give your students is preemptive, what do you call it, corrective busai, martial premonition. You know, and you know, you all know we can't go through, you know, go no sen, hard response, kind of I turn to, oh no, I have to block, sen no sen, I see an opening before the person does, sen no sen, I do something preemptive to shut him down. With busai, I just look at the cross the street, I like the way the guy looks, I change my way, I'm gonna take the longer way home. That's busai. You know, when you have to fight with somebody, you really are not such an intelligent martial artist. So try to use your intellect a little bit more. Okay, guys, let's grab a quick. Stefano, please. Yes, you have a question.
Sorry, Anchi, my one question.
Stefano, I don't know if your mic is on. Let's just try it.
Excuse me, Hanchi. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to go. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lucas. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. See you soon.
Hanchi,
good.
You hear me now or no? Yeah. Okay, so my question is, what would you suggest, or what would be the, I guess, most common things people use as a defensive tool to, and God forbid they encountered somebody like that? For example, you mentioned the jacket or the dress wear that they were wearing.
I'm not leaving, I promise. This is not staged, but this is my favorite. This is my favorite defensive weapon, expandable baton. You know, so you can do so many things, right? So all the things you're doing with your size, you know, you can do it. So this would be my weapon of choice. And if you have to work late at night, I would keep this in the glove compartment of my car, you know, and stick my back pocket in. What's good about expandable baton is it hurts like mother. I know what the word is, right? But it will not kill somebody. You know, you can hit somebody in the stomach, and one time, and you'll rupture their liver, and they'll die. You know, so I mean, you know, there's no full proof. But certainly, when you break somebody's bone, you know, when you break a bone, it's a pretty good deterrent. When you have your bone sticking through your skin, you probably don't want to really assault anybody. You know, you have to take care of business. So if you're going to get anything, I hate the kubotan, you know, because kubotan is such a lie. That means I can get 6 inches away from you and I can defend myself. If you have to get 6 inches from somebody, you're an idiot, you know. If you can't keep distance from somebody, you know, and a kubotan, I took the kubotan the very first time. I saw a very famous teacher from Ottawa. And again, I don't want to insult my Ottawa family. My deepest apologies about the kubotan, guys, but I have to say it. Professor George said, I hit the kubotan. And the kubotan bends like this. I took the kubotan, I hit myself in the wrist like 10 times as hard as I could. It didn't really hurt. So you know, I think the keys one, if someone hits you in the eye, maybe that would hurt. But you know, what are the chances? I mean, you know, if I have this behind me and you're coming at me and I hit you anywhere across the body, especially if you put your hands up, that's a one-shot deal. You know, with a kubotan, how long am I going to stand like this, hitting you in the face with a kubotan back and forth like this? You know, so when people do kubotan classes, all the attendees are between 7 and 10 years old. You know, like adults don't want to do kubotan class. You know, if you do impact baton class, you know, and also if you're doing impact baton class or knife or anything, walk up to the tree and hit it as hard as you can and see what happens. Your hand is going to hurt. Okay, so a lot of people, when they practice with impact weapons, they'll get what's called a green twig fracture. You know, which is a kind of a small crack in the bone, whatever. They don't realize. So sometimes when we do size, you know, guys, we keep our hand relaxed. You know, so having a right. So this movement from here, I'm transferring the energy to the tip without really putting too much power here. Okay? So if I hit something solid like this, the shot goes right back in my body. When I hit this way, I want to put as much speed to the tip as possible, whether I stab, whatever it is. You know, so softness conquers hardness sometimes. You know, that's something people are very popular, like to write down, but they don't really know what it means. It just means being relaxed. It's transferring kinetic energy to the tip or the point of impact. not keeping it at your body. That's like bow, you know, with a good koshi. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create more speed, more power to the tip of the bow. So this would be my number one weapon, and you probably will not end up in jail using it. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Anything else?
What is it called again, Hanji?
This is expendable baton. You know, you twist it and folds up, or you hit it on the floor, it will fold up. You can get it online. It's not like mace or taser. It's not a prohibited weapon. You know, you can buy this, you know, anywhere. Probably Amazon.com probably has it. You know, you probably have an old gift certificate. You can buy it. You know, so if you order Eat, Pray, Love and Expendable Baton, I think they have a special this month. You can get a 2-1. Sorry, Scott, that was for you. There. Anyways, guys. Okay. Any other questions, guys, before we move on? Please, Scott.
So with all of the blades that you're showing, is there a reason, or I guess a history as to why there's certain shapes and like what was the ethnicity behind each of them? Like, why is there a pistol line? Why is?
Okay, so this is a war weapon. Okay, it's called a Kampilan. This is a real Kampilan. Okay, this is a real Kampilan, but it doesn't have human hair because traditionally this was weapon of first was used by Dayaks. Dayaks were the pirates of the sea. They had a unique thing. They would attack people and kill them and take their property away, but they never thought they were doing violence. They called themselves farmers of the sea. The way people farm, you know, on land, you know, grow crops. Their crops were attacking other boats and taking away whatever positions they had. And the more hair you had on this side, human hair, obviously, the more people you vanquished. I'm trying to take a political word. So this is this is no other purpose than a war weapon. And, you know, this is used now, more Filipino martial arts use it, and predominantly use it one hand, but also two hands assist. So it really, to cleave it hard, it's a very sharp weapon, very long weapon, you know. So that's a war weapon. The next thing is you go into weapons that evolve. So this is a very popular weapon called Barong. Barong is a very beautiful Barong as well. This was gifted to me. A Barong is a regular jungle machete that evolved into a fighting weapon. So if you're in Cambodia, Indonesia, those places, Laos, Vietnam, people will have these kind of blades to clear bush, to cut things, you know, maybe if it's a special festival, the pig goes away like this, you know, whatever it is, right? So you have Barongs. And Barong, if you ever saw the movie Apocalypse Now, you know, there's an end of the movie scene where a lot of the warriors would show how strong they are, and they would kill a water buffalo. A water buffalo is a huge animal with huge skin. If you know what, like, you know, when you use a tinbei, Matusha tinbei is made from buffalo hide, it's like 1 inch thick. You can't stab it with anything, it doesn't go through. And one hit, they can cut the head off pretty close, one head off with one hit with a barong, you know. So it's again, it's a skillful weapon. So we have weapons which are used for war, then you have multi-purpose weapons, and then you have defensive weapons. So the defensive weapons are short. So if I lose my Kampilan, I would access my barong. I lose my barong, I access my pisau. Pisau is just a general word for knife in Malaysian. Yeah. And like I said, everything is multi-purpose. That pisau cuts up your chicken and your noodles for lunch, and could be designed to stab somebody if you need it. Okay. And the shapes are personal shapes, right? Some of them have religious reasons, you know. So some of the shapes in Indonesia and Malaysia match certain letters from Arabic language. You know, there's a lot of belief in fighting. You know, like, I'm sure you know Boxer Rebellion. You know, at the beginning of 20th century. You know, they believe special incantations. Some people who are, you know, Islamic fighters, they would put pages of Quran in their clothing. They believed the bullet would be stopped by a page of Quran. And the Boxers had Taoist pages in the stuff. Unfortunately, when the English fired their Lee Enfield rifles at them, it just blew up the back spine instantly and they were dead, man. So it didn't work too well. Any other great questions there? Okay. Patrick, you must have a question. I'm sure you have a question. Okay. The Navaja, this is your people. I lost my Navaja here somewhere. Okay, I have like 50 knives around here, so I lost your navaja. But the long knife that I opened, you know, that's a Spanish weapon. It's very, very popular. You know, no, it's the one that opens long. Anyways, I mean, we're covered here in blades, which is to me it's paradise. It'd be covered in blades. You know. Anything else before we move on, guys? Anything? Okay. A lot of you teach knife defense, things like that, you know. So maybe you have a little more realistic. Don't change what you teach. What you teach is good. You know, like I said, I would say probably 95 or more of your students, they want to just practice the art aspect of the knife fighting. They don't really want to do the actual fighting. You know, they just want to learn the art fighting the way you do. You know, people go to range and they fire a gun or they fire a rifle, whatever. They don't want to kill anybody. It's the same thing. So we're practicing an art form. One thing for if you use bow, sai, tonfa, nunchaku, whatever it is, if you have the nunchaku and you go up to a heavy bag and you hit it, thank you, Sensei. Thank you so much. Sorry, Patrick. This is the knife of your people, especially if you're Seville. It's very, very popular, the navaja, and it's just it closes very strange. You kind of do it and click, 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 push it 3 times, and it closes on. Okay, and then opens and you lock it, and your thumb goes on a lock position. And a lot of the Filipino martial arts were based on actually Navaja. You have to remember that before the Americans kind of took over Philippines as colony, Spain ruled Philippines for centuries and centuries. A lot of Filipino martial arts, actually, people don't realize when they're doing drills, you know, like pommel strips, things like that, is done with a Navaja. So they're using a short knife that doesn't have a pommel, and they're trying to do stuff which was made for this knife. Right? So if somebody grabs your wrist, it's easy to loop them and strip them with a point of a navaja. It's designed for defensive purposes. The little tip there. So a lot of Filipino martial arts are based on this knife, and I'm sure even the Filipino grandmasters who are exceptional at fighting don't realize the original knife it was intended for. Okay. Thank you very much. So the last thing I want to say is whether you're using bow, sai, tonfa, nunchaku, whatever it is, if you never hit anything with a weapon, you really don't know what's going to happen, right? So I mean, you're practicing movements, things like that. But you know, with a nunchaku, first nunchaku hit goes around, back, and hits you somewhere, whether it's a face, elbow, or whatever it is, it hits back, right? So that's why with nunchaku, a lot of times you have to move your body away. It's almost, if you look at it, it's like knife fighting, right? All weapon fighting is the same. You want to put as much power into the strike without injuring yourself in the process. So hitting with a bow, you know, you hit with a bow. I'm gonna walk up the tree, I'm gonna hit the bow slides backwards. It doesn't go into the tree at all because I don't have the right grip, right? With the side, I block, I have a specific block. You know, again, my amazing partner stops the strike there and I go like this. So I block his wrist, I hit his wrist, I block, and it looks perfect. Well, he goes in, forward, and it kicks my weapon back, or I'm like this, and he pushed the weight of the bow. Katana, forget it, you know, Scott, if I try to block your katana with a side like this, next thing would be like a cartoon, you know, 2 parts would be falling to both sides. So what happens is you start doing sai that looks like Indonesian martial arts. You have to parry the sword by moving out of the way. Well, that's not Kabuto. That's Filipino martial arts. Well, Kabuto, not dying, you know, the choice is very simple, right? So we have a very kind of hybrid approach to what we do. We love Okinawan martial arts. We honor Okinawan martial arts. We teach, you know, 40, 50 Okinawan katas, but we try to maintain a combative mindset that will make us a complete all-around martial artist, rather than to be an expert in bow, an expert in sai, or expert in aluminum knife fighting, or expert in wooden knife fighting, you know, right? When I started, you know, our first defense was overhead strike, was an X block, you know. How are you going to block a sharp edge? You know, putting your fingers, just like, you know, stick your fingers in a Cuisinart. That's about, you have the same survival rate as, you know, doing an X block on an overhead strike. You know, so, you know, at least X block, step back and parry downwards behind the weapon. So we learn through trial and error, doing seminars and things like this, traveling. You know, everything we do is collected and it's evolving, right? You know, it's very, very important. When you can adhere to only on the historical stuff, you're not realistic. You know, we honor the past, we look to the future. You know, I think that's our motto always, right? Be progressive. I thank you very much. Maybe it's not the class that you thought you're going to get, but it's a class that you need, especially if you're an advanced martial artist. You have to take your daily practice and apply those principles and concepts and start asking you some questions. So Stefano, you know, Anthony, et cetera, you guys such amazing teachers, ask yourself more questions, you know, just be vulnerable, be fallible, you know, right? You know, just look for the answers. Not necessarily you're going to find them always, but the quest for knowledge is what teaches a life. The minute you stop being a student, you lose your desire to learn, you're dead as a teacher. Okay. So I thank all of you. Thank you so much. So much respect for all of you for taking class today. And please, next class will be lots of low blocks and lots of side kicks. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Mega hugs. Yeah.
So interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Hanshi.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Hanshi. Bye.
My pleasure. My pleasure.